Good morning, everyone. Let's begin today's session. So sit comfortably wherever you are. Keep your back and neck straight and very gently close your eyes. Just start observing your breath. The natural flow of the breathing as you are inhaling and exhaling. And slowly bring your attention to your body. Make sure you are properly aligned. And gently come back to the breathing. Begin to deepen your breath. We'll chant Om 3 times, followed by 3 Shantis. Inhale deeply for Om. 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 Shanti. 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 Just feel the vibrations. Join your palms together and rub your palms together. Place them on the eyes. Very slowly, while blinking and looking at your palms, begin to open up your eyes. Start coming back for the smile. And namaste to everyone. Let us begin today's session. So, yesterday we were talking about the 3 qualities, right? So I just want to take a very small example to explain to you how it fits into your life. Sometimes we think we are doing something out of a good intention, but we don't realize that sometimes there is some ignorance mixed with that. Okay, so let's take the example of charity only. Okay, so uh, giving charity in general terms is considered to be a very good deed, right? So whenever somebody needs something and we provide those resources to them and help them out, it's considered to be a really good thing. But this same action can have different meanings according to the guna which is dominating. Okay, so suppose you are walking on a road, right, and you see a beggar, right, and you immediately feel this urge or this pull to help that person, right? So of course it is a sattvic deed to help that person who is in need, but then there is a sense of ignorance also mixed with this. Okay, because one thing, you don't know how the beggar is going to use that money, right? So of course your intention is really good when you are donating or helping that person, but then at the same time, this realization should be there that it is only one time or two time, or maybe for a month you are providing that help, or 2 3 months, but it's not the way out of all the sufferings, right? So it's, I'm not saying don't do it, okay, you should, right? But I'm telling you the same action has two qualities infused in it, right? So it's good, always good to help someone who needs the money or the food or the time, right? But then at the same time, there is this understanding that you guys should have, that it is not a long term solution, right? It will maybe satisfy the hunger one time or 10 times, right? If you give clothes, then of course they will be used, and then after a while, you cannot use the same clothes, right? So the deed is very good, but then there is some ignorance also mixed with it. So it's a mixture of sattvic and tamasic. Okay. Then same charity example. So suppose you believe in something, okay, like maybe just taking care of animals or something, any cause that you believe in, right? In India, this is especially seen a lot. Okay, so a lot of people, donate, go to the temples and donate in the temple, right? And in turn, they are told that their name will be printed along with the amount they have donated. And it is a general practice, right? When people donate their name, or maybe their name is announced, right? But when you are walking in with this intention, right, then again be very, if you deeply analyze this, the charity is good, it is sattvic, right? But there is rajas mixed with it. Why? Because rajasic attitude is generally very very selfish, right? So suppose my name is not printed or my name is not announced in that event, so a rajasic person will get troubled very easily, right? Your main if it was purely a sattvic deed, you wouldn't mind even if your name is not shown or your name is not announced. But it's the rajasic nature which makes us, feel more agitated or troubled, or we are just waiting, getting restless, right? So even though the donation is sattvic, there is another quality attached with it. Okay, so two qualities are attached together. Okay, and then there is this kind of donation or contribution which is purely sattvic in nature, right? So especially when you look at spiritual practices, because you see that everybody is suffering. Who is happy? Nobody is happy, right? Everybody is suffering in one form or the other, right? So when the deed is purely sattvic, you contribute towards the things which are going to free people from all the suffering. So maybe you go and give service in a place where you really like believe that, okay, my service is going to help these people out overall, right? So like you go and volunteer in a church, right? Or you go and volunteer for any kind of practice that you, in an organization, in any kind of practice that you believe in, which you feel can ultimately free them from all their sufferings, right? So, or maybe you donate towards such activities. So it's totally up to you. You can give your time, your energy, money is also a form of energy only, right? So it's totally up to you. But then that deed becomes purely sattvic because it's targeting a higher cause, right? Higher cause in the sense that freeing, getting free from all the sufferings. You know that after, hopefully after these classes, you know that this is the uh, ultimate path. I'm not saying yoga specifically, but any spiritual practice that you would believe in. Okay, that is the path to free you from your sufferings, right? So when you contribute your money, energy, time towards those things, then it is considered to be purely sattvic. So this realization should be there. Okay, if there is a realization, then you begin to come out of it. But this realization should be there that even though it's a charitable deed, there is a mixture of something else also along with it. So are there any doubts? Like, because what I talked of was quite controversial in some ways. No? Okay, great. Okay, so let's begin today's topic, which is okay, let's sound. Wait. Sorry, I did not get your question. Does Tamsik enter this at all? This, what are you referring to when you wrote this? Okay. Yes, Satvik and Rajsik you mentioned for donation. Okay. I'm not able to get your doubt. Just unmute yourself and just speak. Ask the question. Yeah, okay. Okay, so I'll just briefly say this thing again. So when you are donating, it's a sattvic deed. The donation is a sattvic deed, but when there is a level of ignorance attached along with it. So the ignorance is just this thing. So for us, for general people, it's a purely sattvic deed, right? But you guys know that you you have to be free from all the sufferings. So there is this sense of ignorance in that. Why? Because only one time need is being satisfied. Okay, or maybe you do it 10 times, or maybe you do it on a yearly basis, but after maybe you cannot do it anymore. So only one time needs are being satisfied the way in which you are donating, right? So there is some tamas in it, some ignorance that you want. It's good to believe, and it is true that the need is being satisfied and that you are freeing someone from their suffering, like hunger. When you are hungry, you don't see anything else, you just want food at that point of time, right? So but it is again a temporary solution. That is what I'm trying to say. So the ignorance comes in this portion where it you have to realize that it is a temporary solution for something, right? And Rajsik, I think Rajsik example was quite clear. If you still have a doubt at the end of the session, just unmute yourself and ask me. Okay, cool. I'll just start today's topic because so we have finally come to the schools of yoga, Karma Yoga, Karma, Karma Yoga. We are finally beginning with the four main schools. Okay, there are four main schools, and the first one is Karma Yoga. Okay. So, on the basis of the personality, okay, a lot of schools of yoga came up. Okay, so we are going to do the main, we are going to cover the four main. Okay, so whatever quality you recognize with the most, you guys can go ahead and read more about that. Okay, so this term karm literally means action. Action or work. And Bhagavad Gita, if you read the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, you will find an elaborate discussion on this field. Okay, so we are doing action all the time. So in Bhagavad Gita, it has been mentioned that no human being is free of action. Okay, so you cannot avoid action. Basically, when a lot of students they come into yoga, they are just like this way, I'll have to suspend all my actions. What you are talking about, detachment, all of these things, we'll have to stop doing everything we are doing. We'll have to get separated from the society altogether. We'll have to go into isolation. So no. Okay, action on a bodily level, on the mind level, right? It is always going to go on. As long as you are alive, there is going to be action. This thing has been made clear in Bhagavad Gita, right? Like your breathing. If you are alive, you will breathe, right? So action is something like that. If you are alive, at every point of time, some action or the other is taking place, right? But then the solution is also given. Okay, the solution is what we have already discussed in the previous few classes, but I will give you the right term for it now. Nishkam karm. Okay. Nishkam. Nishkam. Karm. Karma. Right? So Nishkam karm. This is the way out of it. So a lot of people, you will also meet and have philosophical discussions with, or anything, even just introducing yoga. They will say, okay, leave everything behind. Now you're going to go away. So no, you will never suspend your action. Even the yogi who has gone into isolation, they know this thing that they cannot be free of action. They have to do the action. But what they can free themselves from is the expectation. Okay, and that is what Nishkam Karma means, doing the task without expectation. So this quality, when you put this quality into everything you do, you will see the difference. You will begin to see some difference in the way in which you are conducting yourself, right? You, this thing should be very clear that you cannot run away, okay? But you can be aware of your actions, right? And that is the awareness he has talked of in the in the third chapter. So at this point of time, what is going on. I told you the story where Arjun is in a conflict that he should not fight because his family members were standing on the other side, right? So he was again and again, so in his questioning and answering, he was again and again trying to avoid the action only. So when Lord Krishna explains to him in the first two chapters why it is essential for him to fight, then in the third chapter, by the time they reach the third chapter, he is totally trying to avoid the action. Okay, so he's just like, then what's the point, right? If I am ultimately going to be free only and that is my path, then why should I do the action? Why should I kill my own family members, right? And to answer this question, Lord Krishna explains the concept of karma yoga, that one cannot be free from action, right? But they can uh, infuse some perfection in their action, right? So we already talked of perfection in action. So how they can do their action, right? They can do it with full concentration, full dedication, and with a sense of detachment, right? And Karma Yoga talks deeply of the action of the mind. Okay, so this action that you are doing with the body, it can be easily seen, observed, right? When I'm speaking something, the action of the speech, it can be easily observed. But the action of the mind has been given the highest relevance, right? If you can work on the action of the mind, then you will see that the speech and the body are just consequences of what the action of the mind is, right? So when you think of something, right, then you begin to do it, right? But it's just the thought comes up first. Okay, let's plan a vacation. Then you guys go research, right? Look for places where you can go. Then you look for the hotels, then you look for the tourist spots, right? And then you actually book your tickets and then you actually go, right? But it is the idea that comes up in the mind which pushes you, right? So if there is perfection is induced in the thought, right? On the thought level, if you infuse the perfection, then your speech and your body will never go incorrect, right? That is why, from our childhood only, we are taught of morals and ethics. Why? Because they're trying to train the mind so that the speech and the action don't go wrong, right? They're constantly trying to tell us this is the right thing to do, this is not the right thing to do. Why is this happening? Why is this such a common practice in our society? Because this deeper level of understanding is there, that if you train the mind in a certain way, your body and your speech is automatically going to get trained, right? It doesn't mean that it will 100% give you that result, but yes, someone who is thinking in the right direction, or right or wrong to I'll leave only, who is thinking in a conducive or productive direction, their actions will reflect that same thing, right? And that is what we need more and more of, right? We don't need somebody giving us moral lectures, right? It should come from within, right? Till that time, if it doesn't come from within, till that time, everything will seem forced. And yoga is not about forcing, it's about accepting and working on it. If you feel there is a need to work on it, you work on it. And other than that, everything should come naturally to you. There is no force, right? And this you should inculcate or imbibe in each and every practice. It's not just about the discussion that is taking place when you're doing asana. You should, you know uh, there should be no force, right? When you are doing the pranayama practices, there should be no force. You work towards reaching a point where it becomes natural. It's a way of living, it's nothing else. It's just how you exist, right? So action done with perfection is karma yoga, right? Uh, when we talk of karma yoga specifically, right? Uh, we see each and every action as worship. Okay, so this is another quality that you can uh, add, right? So whenever you are doing something, right, consider that thing to be like you are going. It's like your way of worshiping, right? You don't have to specifically go to a temple, right, in order to show your respect to God. It's how you conduct yourself when you are showing up as a student somewhere. So uh, see that space as a sacred space wherever you are studying, right? When I show up as a teacher, so this becomes my place of worship. It's not something separate that I do, right? It's in everything that I do. When you are supposed to, go and maybe cook or maybe clean your room, that becomes your way of worshiping, right? So whatever you do when you show up for that, you see it as an offering to God, okay? It or some higher energy. So you don't need to specifically believe in God, okay? Whatever you believe in, and all the actions that you are doing, it's a way, it's an offering to that thing, right? So this quality will slowly seep in as you go deeper into your practice. This quality in your work will seep in, right? When you go to the temple, you are really quiet, right? And you are fully aware, right? Because you know that if you make some sound or some noise, it will disturb everybody else, right? So you're very careful when you take each and every step, when you go and sit down also, right? So this awareness, exactly, this is what you are doing. It's as if you're walking into a temple. So you are aware of everything that you are doing. You are quiet, okay? So most of us, when we eat our food, we talk a lot, right? So this, when you quiet yourself down, or we engage in something else like watching TV, right? So when you give the time and the space to do whatever you are doing, one thing at a time, right? That thing. So same thing, same analogy I'm drawing. When you walk into a temple, all of these things you do, you immediately become quiet, right? And immediately there is this sense of respect that comes in, that there is something above you, higher than you, right? No matter which kind of sacred place you walk into, you can create your own space in your house, right? But there is this sense of respect when when you join the hands together and you bow down. This thing shows so much respect and you know a sense of surrender, right? So when we say you are being free from the results, what are you doing? You are actually ultimately surrendering only, you are surrendering your actions, thinking that you are doing it for something higher or more than you. So all of these qualities slowly begin to imbibe into your actions, right? And this completely changes the uh, um, results, right? So I'll take the same example. I think I have taken it a few times before also. When you scold a child who is running towards fire, right? Then your scolding is very different. You're trying to protect the child, right? The child doesn't know, right? And then when you scold someone because you are irritated, frustrated, just want to take that anger out. So same thing, you are taking the anger out, but the result is going to be so different for both the actions, right? One more example for this thing, where the action is the same but the intention is different. So one time a traveler was going on the way, right? And there was this other thief, right? A thief was there on the path, and as soon as he saw the traveler and saw that the traveler had good wealth, the purse was just outside, right? And he could see that he could gain something out of the traveler. So what he did was he took out the knife and stabbed the traveler in the stomach, right? So this is one incident, right? And he killed the traveler to acquire the wealth, right? So action is taking out the knife and stabbing someone, right? Which kills them. Okay. Then same thing is happening on the other side. Same scene is going on, right? Where a patient is going for surgery, and the doctor, he says that, okay, this is how we'll have to operate, right? And we'll have to uh, cut your abdomen in order to do the surgery, right? So same thing, the patient is lying on the bed, right? And the doctor takes out the knife and cuts the abdomen open. But it so happens, due to misfortune, that the way in which the doctor cut the abdomen, right, it wasn't correct, or it didn't serve the purpose it was supposed to. And some mishappening happened, and the patient died on the table, right? So, same action, taking out the knife, cutting the stomach, right, and leading to death, right? Do you think both the people will get the same consequence? No, right? Both their intentions were different. One was doing that same action to cure the patient, right? And in that incident, death took place. And the other was literally trying to rob someone of their wealth, right? And their motive was completely different. It was not to help the other person, right? The same action, sometimes you will see you are now doing the same action, but your intention has changed. How you are doing it is same, right? But you know what kind of change is coming in. And this is what Karma Yoga is. The more you get connected to your own actions, the better you are able to do Karma Yoga, right? So it's Karma Yoga is for someone who really believes that, whatever actions that they are doing, for beginner, only physical level actions. If you just believe that, okay, whatever I do, it's causing some consequence, or it is contributing in some way, right? And you strongly believe in this thing, you will see a lot of people who go into social activism. They really believe that their protests or their standing up is going to bring about a change, right? Which does happen, right? So if you are in that category, who is strongly believing that each and every action that you do contributes to something higher, then Karma Yoga is the path for you, right? Because you can work on the quality of the action in that way. And Karma Yoga everybody can do, right? So it's not necessary that only one type of people or other type of people can do this thing, right? Or only one people belonging to one religion or the other can practice this. Karma Yoga can be practiced by everybody. It's just about changing the way in which you are doing the actions, right? So it's not limited or restricted to only some people. And it is a great way to begin, because it is quite easy, right? You can start with just one action, and then you will see how other actions begin to change as a consequence of that. And this thing is, even if you go to if you read Lord Buddha's teachings, he has also said this thing, that whatever you are doing today is a result of what you did in the past. But if you choose to change your action today, you will change your future, right? So, of course, there is something like destiny, there is something like, your purpose, right? But whatever you are doing today, that this thing will bear a fruit in your future, right? And whatever you did in the past, that thing is bearing the fruit, and that is why whatever your current experiences are, they are this way. So you cannot change the past, right, which is highly influencing your present, but you can change your present to influence your future, right? If I start working hard today, I don't know when, but I will reach my goal, right? But if I choose not to work towards my goals and keep thinking that, okay, I'll get my goal, so that thing is going to, completely change the thing, right? So you have to put in the work. So next time somebody comes to you and says, okay, I have to leave everything if I have to do yoga, no, you have to exist in the society, right? And Karma Yoga is a very practical way for you to exist in the society. Most of us, actually everybody sitting over here, cannot leave the world, right? Cannot go into isolation. We are not ready also. So how do we live our daily lives? That question is answered by Karma Yoga, right? Now the concept of right and wrong also comes in somewhere, right? So how do you decide what is correct action and what is incorrect action? Like there should be some bar or standard in order to understand this thing also. So the first thing that you can do is rely on the common logic. Okay, so your common logic. Okay, so maybe you do something and with common logic you see that it is, harming you. Okay, like what example can I take for this? Okay, maybe if you are not studying, so you are not able to pass your exam. Okay, so this is common logic. So if you study and you put in the work, then maybe at least you will be able to cross that mark of passing, right? So common logic. If you do something, then as a result, something else will might happen, right? So this is your common logic. And how do you develop your common logic? By reading up. Reading up in the sense that if you read books like Bhagavad Gita, right? So common logic, you will only see common logic in these books, right? So it helps you to increase your understanding of the common logic, right? If this is happening, then this is happening. Like if you are getting angry, most people believe that uh, uh, we are going to hurt someone else, right? If somebody gets angry, they hurt someone, right? But when you read such texts, you realize when you get angry, first person you hurt is your own self, right? So this common logic gets infused in your way of living, right? Now, if somebody is just like, okay, I don't want to go into all of this, I don't understand common logic, then the second source for them becomes somebody they think, um, someone who can guide them in their life, right? So the importance of a guru comes in over here, right? So somebody who's able to make that distinction, right? But you will have to have a sense of surrender towards them, right? If you keep questioning, right? Why are you saying this? Why are you saying that? Right? Then the guru will not be able to work with you, right? So here the concept of surrender. So tomorrow we will do bhakti yoga, right? So over there I will talk of that tomorrow or day after, whenever we find the time. Okay. So this is where karma yoga starts to merge with bhakti yoga, right? The sense of surrender or viewing something as a place of practice, a place of worship, right? This is a quality of a bhakt, right? Somebody who chooses to surrender, right, completely. So its second way for you is through a guru, not a teacher, right? We are your teachers, right? Not us, but guru, somebody who is above you in the spiritual journey, right? And who can guide you, right? And if nothing else is there, then, but this is a very high level thing, okay? So you'll have to develop yourself with this. There is this voice within you, right, which will guide you. If you you know when your mind is very clear, right, you're able to make the correct decision for yourself. So there is a voice that is coming from within you that don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, and then you actually don't do it if your mind is clear, right? And you see, oh, I was thinking correctly. And other side is there when something within you is constantly saying, I don't feel good about this, I don't feel good about this, and then you end up doing it and you feel good about it actually when you do it. So this inner voice is there with all of us, right? All you guys have this inner voice that is going to help you to decide what is right and what is wrong for you. So if you're able to connect with that, you will be able to navigate through life more easily. And that is why I keep repeating in my classes, go for meditation as much as you can, because this thing you will connect with only when you have a deep, connection with yourself. You are able to hear that voice which is guiding you, right? So only meditation will help you with this thing, right? So these are three ways in which you can decide what is good for you and what is bad for you. You set your own standards in a way, right? So sorry. Yeah. So one more thing that I personally believe, which I'm sharing with you guys, always go for actions which make your life better. Okay. So you will immediately see if a particular habit or action is making your life better or worse, right? So if you choose to go for actions which are making your life better, you will see progress, right? But if you uh, consistently repeat those actions which are degrading your life, this you will see for your own self, right? This is a good way to navigate through your own circumstances and understanding of your own personal life, right? uh, if you feel you are doing something which you really like, okay, but it is degrading your life, so it will be hard for you to leave that. But if you leave that, your life will move towards the better things, right? And whatever is making your life better, try to increase those things in your life, right? So do more and more of those things. It could be anything, right? I'm not saying do this only or that only, but something that makes your life better, try to incorporate more and more of that. You will not even have to work on leaving behind the bad habits, right? You'll just focus on making the good habits more prominent in your life. And that is exactly what your focus should be. If I am supposed to achieve something, my vision should be on what I should do, right? But most of us think in the opposite manner. We're just like, uh, please, this should not happen, right? Or I don't want this to happen. So we are throwing all of our focus on our bad habits or what we don't want should happen. So what is gaining more attention? The not happening thing, right? I'm asking you to shift your perspective a little bit. And even if your focus is getting rid of bad habits, right? So means that your focus is on a bad habit, right? So rather than that, change your vision a little bit and work on the good ones. The bad ones will leave you by default because you'll give more time, more and more time to doing something that is good for you, right? So if you want to read up more about Karma Yoga, you can go and read the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita. There is much more information in there for you guys, right? And there, if you want to go for a longer, like if you like this concept and you want to read more and more about it, then you can also, I'm writing down the name of a book. You can go ahead and read that book also. Okay, so the name of the book is Karma Yoga, right? By Swami Vivekanand. Swamivivekananda. Right? So you guys can go ahead and read this book if you found this very interesting and you feel you want to adopt this way of life. Are there any doubts from anyone? No doubts? Okay, so tomorrow we will begin with the other concept, right, at the School of Yoga. And until then, you can today incorporate some new qualities into your own actions, right? So let's end today's session. Keep your back and neck straight and very gently close your eyes. And just start observing your breath. We'll chant Om one time, followed by 3 Shantis. Inhale deeply for Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Join the palms together. Let's just bow down and begin our day with a sense of gratitude. Rub the palms together. Put them on your eyes. And very slowly, while blinking and looking at your palms, begin to open up your eyes. Start coming back with a smile. And namaste to everyone. I will see you all in the afternoon for your pranayam class. Until then, take care and bye-bye.